Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to live stream at the Upper Room. I'm Ron Strand. We're glad that you're joining us on this Monday, February 8th, 2021, right into the day after Super Bowl. So I don't know. I didn't watch the Super Bowl yesterday. I've kind of given up on the NFL right now. Maybe I'll come back. I don't know. But anyway, that's another story. Hey, we're glad you're joining us. If this is your first time, we are the Upper Room. The Upper Room is a nonprofit. Well, let's see. The best way to describe it is where entertainment and culture meets ministry. And we started this in 2009. We typically what we do is we have an event once per month on the first Saturday of each month. We've had concerts, we've had speakers of note, we've had comedians, and it's just a great thing that happens outside the walls of the church. And it's been a wonderfully successful ministry, and we can't wait to get back to meeting because the venue that we use is not allowing us to meet right now, obviously because of the virus. And but as soon as we're back, we're going to be back to doing our once a month shows. But you know what do they say? That necessity is the mother of invention. And so when this happened, we started back in April. We started a weekly live stream, and that's been just as equally as popular. And we've got wonderful guests like we're going to have tonight. And so it's been a wonderful thing. If you haven't checked us out on Facebook, you can go there. It's at the Upper Room Presents, and you're probably there now because you're watching us. Like us on Facebook, will you? And also subscribe to our YouTube channel. And right now we're simulcasting on YouTube, and that's also the Upper Room Presents. And if you what do they call it? Subscribe there, you'll be notified just like you are on Facebook. Also, next week we have John Elefante, who is the former lead singer of the group Kansas. Going to be a great interview. We're looking forward to that. And the following week, we're going to be having author Gregory Reed on. Greg has an incredible ministry and a very fascinating testimony that we're going to hear from, and just a very interesting man. So, and then some of the upcoming guests we haven't actually nailed down dates from yet, but we have the record producer Chris Christian's going to be with us, Governor Mike Huckabee, and Amir Sarfati, who is an Israeli Christian who ministers here in the States and all over the world. Wonderfully insightful man. And so we've got some really good stuff coming up. Tonight, we're going to turn our attention now to our guest for the evening. I'm really excited to have Terry with us because my first experience as a believer back in 1976 was at Calvary Chapel of Costa Mesa. And one of the first groups I saw there was a group of guys that came out, and they were mostly country rock at the time. But I was so fascinated by the music they were playing, and I just thought they were incredibly talented. And, you know, I've always talked about, when I talk about my testimony, it's the music that drew me in, really, into my faith. And so I'm very pleased to have, because this is the first time we've talked a little bit before the show tonight, the first time I'm meeting him. Would you welcome to the Upper Room, Terry Scott Taylor? Hey, Terry, how are you?
Hey, Ron.
Good to see you.
It's an honor.
I'm glad you're on, and we're really excited. We've had a lot of people very excited that you're going to be on tonight, and so we're happy that you're here. And one of the things, I guess, is that we just haven't really heard from you for a long time. And I'd like to explore that, but you're living on the West Coast now, and up in Washington State, I guess, right? So let's just kind of start at the beginning. Were you raised in California?
I was born in Southern California, LA County, and lived a number of years there. In 64, I was born in 1950, so in 64, we moved to the Bay Area, and lived up there for a number of years. And I moved back again to Southern California, and then back again to the Bay Area.
Did you?
From the Bay Area, wound up here in Washington.
From the Bay Area back in Washington. So what part of Southern California were you
well, I lived in several cities. I was born in Bell. I lived in Norwalk. I lived in Garden Grove. I lived in Dana Point for a number of years. So
a lot of stuff came away. Well, I grew up in Pico Rivera, Whittier area. So right neighboring areas of Bell and Bellflower and all that area there.
Yeah.
So you're as I mentioned, of course, you were involved in music way before your introduction with Daniel Amos Group. That's when you became familiar with the church and in the Christian music at the time. And but so, what was your early influence in music in terms of what?
I kind of lived in I lived in a golden era, really. It started off with the old teen heartthrob thing.
Yeah.
Ricky Nelson and all those guys. And then we had the British invasion, and then you had Motown happening. So the British invasion, because of my age at that time, was really a huge influence.
Yeah.
I loved everybody from the Stones, the Beatles. But my first love, as far as the band goes, were the Beach Boys, because I lived in Southern California.
Yeah.
Lived on the coast.
Yeah.
So, you had to love the Beach Boys as much as you loved
absolutely.
Long Country and Apple Pie. That was the deal. So,
that's right.
I had little mixed feelings when the Beatles first came on the scene, because I still loved the Beach Boys.
Yeah.
But I learned to love both bands. I think they had an incredible influence on me musically, especially Brian Wilson. His creativity and with an album like Pet Sounds, that he just reached the apex of his creative abilities.
Well, and I think Brian's ability to explore and experiment with music really pushed his limits, and I kind of see some similarities with you there, and how your music has evolved, and we'll kind of get into that. And from kind of that country rock sound that you guys first came out with on that first Daniel Amos album, and then moving into Shotgun Angel, which kind of almost had a little bit of a departure from that first album, and then even into Horrendous Disc and all the other things. There was a real evolution, and your music has changed quite a bit over the years. So but let's go back a little bit further. Did you grow up in a Christian home? Were you
Well, my folks were nominally Christian. My grandmother and grandfather attended church fairly regularly, but and I had some exposure to the church at an early age. Mainly, I had, from a very young age, I had philosophical questions. I used to lay awake at night thinking about God being someone who had always existed.
Yeah.
And, trying to wrap, my young mind trying to wrap. I mean, we can't wrap our mind around that even now. But,
no, exactly.
But as a young kid, I entertained those sort of philosophical ideas. And as far as my view of church, I believe that there probably was a God, but I didn't have any sense of a real relationship with him. I was a typical kid who said my prayers at night, before I went to bed and that sort of thing by rote.
Sure.
Now I lay me down to sleep, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Other than that, I didn't have much of a relationship. My grandmother would try and give me a tract now and then.
Oh, is that right?
Oh yeah, which I thought were some pretty hilarious stuff as far as I was concerned. I remember reading a tract on the evils of hot rods.
The evils of hot rods.
Evils of hot rods.
That's a new one for me.
Yeah, and even as a kid, I was laughing. I thought, well, why would my grandmother get about? I've got a little bike out in the back with some cards in it to make it sound like a
sure. Yeah.
Or hot rods. But at the end of that track was this little prayer.
Yeah.
It was the sinner's prayer.
Right.
and it said if you want to accept Christ in your heart, sign here, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I signed it, and then put it away, and I never saw it again.
Yeah.
But even then, nothing really changed. I just kind of acquiesced to the sentiment of
How old were you when you signed that?
Oh, I probably was maybe 9.
Yeah.
Somewhere in there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was exposed to church, but I didn't have any kind of personal commitment or relationship on any real level at all. Very superficial.
So what changed? Because you obviously came full, both wheels, or all 4 wheels on for Jesus with Daniel Amos. What changed over that time frame? Did you get into the drug culture, the hippie culture, and all? Did you do that whole realm? And
I was sort of in the middle of all of that, and I had a lot of friends who were pretty heavy drug users.
Yeah.
And I experimented a little bit, but I began to contemplate that there might be a way to be high in my life without drugs, and that might be through some sort of religious experience of some sort. So I really began to investigate a lot of different religions. Baha'i was one of them, Scientology, and some of these other things. And in an attempt to sort of stay away from getting immersed in the drug things, I just saw a lot of people burn out.
Yeah.
With that, in that situation, and I had a friend that I was in of course, in the '60s, everybody and his mother had a guitar and was in a garage band of some sort.
Mm-hmm.
I was in a local band in the Bay Area that was fairly popular in the area. This is the same time that Larry Norman was in People.
Yeah.
Yeah, we played many of the venues that they played and that sort of thing.
Did you know Larry then?
I had met Larry a couple times, but I didn't know him well.
Yeah.
I love the band People. They were a great copy band.
Yeah.
And they were wonderful. So I had been in a band with the bass player of the band did all the songwriting. We did the typical thing of covering, hits and that sort of thing. But we were unique in that we did have some original material. And he was the primary songwriter. I was sort of a fledgling songwriter, hadn't really found my legs yet. But he was really good at writing great pop songs with hooks.
Yeah.
And I really, that attracted me and really listened. Well, after the band broke up and I was in a couple of other bands, this guy had gone off and he'd gone off on some kind of a sort of spiritual search himself. He would call me every once in a while and I'd hear sitar music or something in the background.
Yeah.
He'd be laying some philosophy on me that was, didn't quite make sense to me or whatever. And he was on this search. Well, about a year later, he was in town. He was back in town. He said he would like to get together with me. And I was over at my girlfriend's house, who eventually became my wife. And he walks in. He must have been carrying a 40-pound Bible. I thought, oh no, here we go. Here goes the big sales pitch. And we sat down across from each other and shared some road memories and stuff. And he kind of started sharing, his journey and how he came to the faith. And what I liked about, despite the huge Bible that I thought he might, start thumping with, he didn't at all. He was very conversational and was interested in what I was up to and very genuine. And his what you would call testimony, really impressed me. I was happy that he had escaped the drug culture and the whole thing. And I had just at that point I'd gotten into Scientology, and not to any great extent. I was really feeling disillusioned, and
just disillusioned in general, or with Scientology.
Well, with Scientology itself, and a little bit frustrated that I hadn't, come to a place of sort of spiritual enlightenment.
Yeah.
What I was really trying to find. And it was not maybe a week or two after my friend had shared this with me that I was in my room, that I shared with my brother. He wasn't in there at the time, but I was in the room in Los Gatos, California. And I had what was a supernatural experience. It was a road to Damascus experience.
Wow. Can you talk about it?
I can. I'm often reluctant to do so because one of the things about it is often when the few people I've told about this, I'll generally kind of tell my story, but leave out some of the details.
Sure.
Some people will say, well, why hasn't it happened to me?
Mm.
This is a thing. And you understand why.
Yeah.
It's very hard to articulate, but I'll give it my best shot. The air in the room suddenly was just sucked out of the room.
Wow.
And I felt an incredible presence. And it was both frightening and exhilarating and holy.
Yeah.
And I heard a voice. Now, I don't know how to describe the voice because it's not like you and I talking here, but I heard it audibly, but and yet it wasn't audible. I don't know any other way to say it. And he said to me, "The trial's over." Now that pertained to something specifically in my life that was happening at the time.
Yeah, that meant something to you.
That's something personal to me. The trial. Yeah. I also heard a scripture that I knew nothing about. I'd never read this scripture before. "Choose this day whom you will serve," he said.
Wow. Wow.
And then he said to me, "I will never speak to you this way again."
Wow.
Now, I didn't know what that meant at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I've since realized what it means, that this is a faith walk.
Yeah.
And that if I am dependent upon some presence in my room and a voice talking to me for everything that I do, that's not really faith.
Yeah.
So I've understood that since and made that adjustment. But it's a difficult one to share because people do say, "Well, I've never had anything happen like that. Why you?" And my answer to that is I don't know why.
Yeah.
I don't know why God. There are various experiences that people have. C.S. Lewis. It took him a long time to come into an intellectual knowledge of God himself and finally believe that God. But he called himself the most reluctant convert in England.
Yeah. Right.
By the time he gave his life. So some people, it takes a long time. Some people will have an experience like myself. Or, God just reveals himself in this moment.
Yeah. Well, as you called it, a road to Damascus experience, and that's how God called Paul, and he called all the different apostles in different ways. And sometimes it's the way he gets through to that person, that particular individual. Yeah. So it doesn't happen to everybody that way.
And the trial that he was talking about when he told me it was over, in fact, that was confirmed 2 days later, miraculous. So there was a confirmation. And also about that time, it was probably a week later that I had my first sort of, if you call it a spiritual dream or vision or what. I had never heard I'd read Revelation, when I was in high school because it was a cool thing to read. It was the hippie era and it had all this strange.
Yeah.
But being familiar with the Bible was not my forte. And I dreamt not about a week after my conversion, and it may have been almost a vision, but I saw myself in armor. I didn't know anything about the armor of God, but I saw myself in armor. And I was walking along a hillside with a deep valley below. And I came to the end of the mountainside, and the trail abruptly ended, and then there was the abyss. And I saw a hill on the other side. And I thought, well, how am I going to get across to the other side? And then a sense of you need to take a step of faith. And so I stepped forward with my right foot. And the moment I stepped forward with my right foot, a piece of the bridge appeared.
Wow.
And then I took the left foot, and the next piece appeared. I crossed over to the other side. So again, kind of an affirmation that though the Lord wasn't going to speak to me audibly, faith was going to get me where I needed to go.
Yeah. So you took those steps, and that was very profound and actually very vivid for you to have those kind of visions and those kind of things happened. And so that was and so how about what age were you when this all happened?
Well, that was around 73 or 4. I think it was 74, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
So what would that make me? 1950?
It's about 24 years old, somewhere there. Yeah. So one of the guys asked a question here. I'm just going to bring it up because it kind of is germane to, and I think you may have answered it, but I may have missed it. Terry Wayne asks, what was the scripture again that you heard? Because I think something kind of faded out there where we couldn't hear it, that you audibly heard that you said you didn't know.
Choose this day whom you will serve.
Say it again. Jesus.
Choose this day.
Whom
you will serve.
Wow. Very profound.
And it was explicit to the situation I was in.
Wow. That's really amazing. So now you're walking with the Lord. A very profound experience has happened in your life. 24 years old, and you're up in the Bay Area. So talk about the birth of getting to the point of Daniel Amos and how that all came together, if you will.
Okay. Well, I continued to. I was in a band at the time, pretty serious one. We were talking about seeking out a recording contract. I actually took a trip out to Nashville with my future brother-in-law, who was going to be who was in the band as well. We got a Nashville writers contract with a publishing company out there, and we were rehearsing and felt that it was time that we got in and started doing some demos, which we did with the eye on touring and the whole thing. So when I had this conversion experience, I had no sense of any other artists doing so-called Christian music. I didn't know anything about Christian, except it was, hymns and things like that.
Yeah.
I was really kind of in a bubble in that regard. I had no reference point. So I just felt compelled to write a song about my faith. And I wrote it. It was called Walking with My Lord. And we were doing kind of a Crosby, Stills, and Nash deal. And the guys, my brother-in-law was a nominal Christian at the time, and the other guys in the band weren't Christians at all. But I showed them the song. They said, yeah, that's cool. So we worked that song out, and it was in repertoire. And I knew, again, I didn't know about Randy Stonehill. I didn't know about Larry Norman. I didn't know about Calvary Chapel, Maranatha Music. I knew nothing about any of it.
Yeah, right.
And I think I might listen to a Ralph Carmichael thing or something.
Mm-hmm.
That was it. So I was kind of on my own, and I had a friend. We were playing Christian World Liberation Front, which was up in Berkeley, and they would do street ministry there.
Right.
Sproul Hall and all of that. We knew something about those guys. Anyway, a guy from that organization gave me a love song record.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I thought, wow, this is interesting. And I put it on, and my world, things exploded.
No kidding.
World opened up. Because what I heard there was, first I heard incredible musicianship, great pop sensibilities, Beach Boy, Beatle influences, some country influences as well, country rock stuff, which I was into. And I thought, you can do Christian music and do it this well, and it stands up and it's as good as anything else. It was a revelatory. So this love song record really was the catalyst for me to begin to write songs that were faith based and seek an outlet for that. In the meantime, my parents and my brother still lived in Southern California. I'm in the Bay Area, and they started talking about Catholic and music scene. And I got involved with the San Jose hotline, which we took a lot of people that were overdosing, so forth and so on. We did help them out. But they also had something called the Upper Room.
Oh, they did.
Yeah. And I got involved. They had me playing music there for the Upper Room. And then they decided they were going to bring Love Song into San Jose State College.
Yeah.
Oh, you're the music guy. You do it. Well, I didn't know anything about promoting anything or how to handle it. And we made the contacts. And they said, sure. And then I was in charge of getting the auditorium there and the whole thing, and brought the guys up. Well, the guys at the Upper Room were going, Terry, you got to play them this song that you wrote. There was a song called Ain't Gonna Fight It.
Yeah.
And I said, I can't do that. How embarrassing. These guys don't want to hear some lowly guitar struggling, playing the song.
Yeah.
And they kept on me, and I said, well, we'll see. So anyway, I'd gone over there, and I brought my guitar with me, very hesitantly, brought my guitar with me, and they were getting their sound check. And I'm thinking, I'm not going to do this. Well, they got done with their sound check, and Chuck Girard came off the stage and walked towards the back, probably going to go to the restroom or something. And I went, okay, if I don't say something, everybody back in the Upper Room is going to be on my case. Chuck. Yeah. I said, I hate to bother you, man. I said, but I've got a lot of people pressuring me to do. I was, using them as a scapegoat.
Sure. Yeah.
I said, I got a lot of people, at the Upper Room that want me to play you this song. And he was so gracious, so wonderful about it. He goes, sure. He goes, when I get back, let's go backstage.
Uh-huh.
So he comes back, and I follow him and back to where the green room is, and the door's shut. He opens the door, and everyone is in the room. Phil Kagi,
everybody,
everyone. And Chuck goes, "This is Terry. He's going to play a song for you."
Yeah, here's my new song.
Yeah, my heart,
Uh-huh.
And I'm shaking like a leaf, and I get my. I mean, these are the guys that started everything for me.
Sure. Right? Yeah.
And so I take my guitar out and I start playing Ain't Gonna Fight It. And I got done, and they all applauded, and there were smiles everywhere. And Tommy Coombs says to me, have you ever thought about doing a record?
Oh, really?
And I said, well, I fantasized about it. He goes, well, I'd love to produce it.
Yeah. Wow.
And I just went, wow. And that began the process of me eventually moving down with what was Jubal's last band at the time, who had one of the members of the early Daniel Amos in it with me. And we decided to move everything down to Southern California, get involved with Maranatha Music. It was a whirlwind. We went to the night that they would have auditions in a side building from the church. Tom Stein, may he rest in peace.
Yeah, yes.
Was the music minister there at the church, and he would listen to people. Mm-hmm. The whole deal was that if they liked you, then they would put you on Thursday nights.
Yeah.
Thursday nights were sort of the let's wait and see.
Yeah. Let's see what they got really good.
They got and keep them there for a while. And as they improve, we might consider them doing an opening on Saturday night, which was in Carnegie Hall night for every night.
Yeah.
And so before we played, there was three young guys who had a stack of Marshall amps behind them. It was just, it wasn't a big room, but they had a stack of Marshall amps, and they were thrashing it pretty good. And Tom said, Tom was very, he was gracious, but pretty blunt. And he said, well, you guys aren't quite ready, work at it and all the best to you. Sure. So we are with our little, there's three of us, little guitars.
Yeah.
He says, okay, why don't you guys do something? And I'm thinking, oh boy, this is going to be rough. And first thing we played was Ain't Gonna Fight It. And I had a couple more, and he said, play some more. And so we did. And he goes, how would you guys like to play Calvary Chapel?
Oh, wow.
And we said, oh, fantastic. And we're kind of talking among ourselves, man. We got a Thursday night. And he goes, and he overhears us and he goes, no. This coming Saturday night.
Oh my gosh.
We just went right. And that was surreal. I was working for my dad at the time doing carpentry. That week, a skill saw backed up on me, and I took off part of my thumb. And
oh my gosh!
Bit on my finger. Another miraculous save, I might say, by the Lord sparing me, because I had it fairly. It was just a block of wood, and so all my fingers were wrapped around this thing, and it just somehow that saw blade missed the vital stuff.
Wow.
And so I played that Saturday night with the bandages wrapped.
Oh my gosh.
People told me afterwards they thought that it was some sort of
All right, I think we got Terry freezing up here for a second. See if he comes back.
Everybody went crazy.
Yeah.
And then it just took off from there.
Now, was that the time when you guys came out on stools and you just sat there and played kind of acoustic? Was that?
Yeah, that was it.
Yeah.
And that's an interesting period, because people often ask, well, why has Daniel Amos changed? Did they change so much over time? Part of that was that my influences right in that period of time were things like Crosby, Stills and Nash. Also, Sweetheart of the Rodeo was very big. Yeah. And I liked the idea that the Byrds were sort of going off the beaten track a little bit and doing that genre.
Yeah.
Well, I was caught up in that a little bit. Well, things happen so quickly. We at first we were just playing little Bible studies and things like that. We were trying to learn enough songs to do a set. So we do these little country harmony things.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden we're playing at Calvary Chapel. They want us to do a record, So the whole period that I was going through, suddenly we kind of got branded in a way, and we certainly helped to bring as a country band.
Yeah, right.
So it wasn't until Shock and Angel that we were able to really kind of spread our wings a little bit and kind of, it was kind of a little heads up to the fans that we've opened the palette up here a little bit, and we're going to be exploring a lot of different.
I think that album, Shotgun Angel, was probably one of the finest records that I'm not saying in your repertoire, but to me, the musical skills on that, the orchestrations, the kind of a rock opera element to it, it and you guys were very tight. And one of the things I do remember is when seeing you guys in concert is you were just so tight and good. It was just, it just pulled you right in, and you were just enthralled for the time you guys were playing. And of course the message, came through very clear. But the other thing I noticed is you guys had fun on stage. You did some little antics and you kind of just had fun with it all. You didn't take yourself too serious, but yet it was serious. And so you were still Jubal's last band when you came out on that first?
No, we weren't. What had happened was prior to that, we'd gone to the musicians would have a weekly meeting.
Yeah.
And we had gone to this meeting, and usually sometimes Chuck would come in and talk to everybody or whatever, but
yeah,
it was Tom Stipe or whoever it was. And we discovered that Daryl Mansfield's band was called Jubal's last band too.
Yeah.
So they were asking to, what's the name of your guys' bands? You're going to have to resolve this thing. Well, they were over in their corner, we were over in ours.
Yeah.
It was like, who's going to blink first? Who's going to?
Yeah.
And we were just kind of powwowing there, and decided to go with Old Testament prophets, Daniel Amos, and they changed their name too. So Jubal's out all
Jubal's never made it on the scene.
No, probably a good thing, but anyway.
So how did you, what was the significance of Daniel and Amos? I mean, just that there were just two prophets, that famous favorite prophets, or was there a significance to it?
Yeah, not a great significance. We like the fact, obviously they're prophets, but we also kind of like the idea of going with something that sounded like a guy, kind of Jethro Tull or something.
Yes, exactly.
And of course, we might have given that a second thought if we had known that over the years we would have people coming up saying, "Who's Daniel and who's Amos?"
Right.
Or calling me Daniel, or
right,
whatever. Or as even you guys kind of had to do Daniel Amos Band.
Yes. Well, I do that just because, I'm thinking there's people out there that may not understand who Daniel Amos was.
I completely,
yeah.
Was with that. Yes.
Yeah. What was unique about, and by the way, I want to go back to your story about Love Song. We've got to get you on film telling that story for our documentary. I told Terry just before we came on tonight about the Love Song documentary that we're producing, and we need to arrange that. So maybe I'll talk to you afterwards tonight about getting that on film. But what was in your mind? What was unique about Daniel Amos? That because like you said, things exploded, and you guys had an instant, quick following with a lot of fans. But in your mind, what was unique and different? And I'm not trying to put you to compare yourself, but more so just maybe what was different about what you guys were doing.
Well, probably a number of factors. One was that we were very accessible to all ages. There was that element. A kid could like you. Your mom could like us.
Yeah.
It was easy. It was just accessible in that regard. And it was catchy.
Yeah.
Catchy hooks and things like that. And in some ways we didn't take ourselves too seriously. There was a lot of humor involved, so you could get people to laugh and join in. And it wasn't a bunch of amps. We didn't have a drummer. We didn't have any of that stuff.
Yeah.
Now, some people may say that and that's how we ruined the band. But it was just guys sitting on these benches, and we had Steve Baxter was in the band at the time. The guy that's on the first record. He passed away very recently. But,
I just read that. Yes.
But he had the sweetest tenor voice that I've ever heard in my life. And because we were really a vocal band, That's where we shined. That was really upfront, and we just had a natural, like the Beach Boys that I loved.
Yeah,
it was just this natural blend that we had, and as a matter of fact, a lot of the artists from Maranatha at the time said, we've never heard harmony quite as beautiful.
Yeah, you guys had great harmonies.
It had a lot to do with Steve, because he had that top end of things, so pure and beautiful. So I think all of those elements were part of it.
Well, I think one of the things that when you're talking about Love Song and the Beach Boys, for that matter, the harmonies, they're known for the harmonies and Love Song, but yet you're able to do some, soft melodic ballad kind of thing, but yet you're able to rock it, and that juxtaposition, if you will, it was very interesting, because you could kind of take it in both directions.
Right.
And
yeah.
So did you do a lot of touring? And by the way, let's talk about the first lineup of who was in the first Daniel Amos band when you guys recorded with Maranatha.
Well, the very first record, as I said, in some ways we weren't prepared for it. It just happened very quickly. We didn't have a drummer. We had myself, and then Steve Baxter on guitar. Marty Deckmeyer came in to play bass, and Jerry Chamberlain on guitar. So we had to supplement in the studio with studio session players, and some keyboard stuff as well. So, and then the band that Ed McTaggart, who eventually became our drummer, was a band called Road Home.
Oh yes, yeah.
Road Home was probably my favorite Maranatha band at the time. I love it.
Yeah.
And
wasn't that Tom Stipe's band? Was Road Home, or was that? That was.
That was. I'm going to space out.
Guy that passed away. Wasn't it?
Bill Sprouse.
Oh, Bill Sprouse. That's right, Bill Sprouse.
And he passed away. So Ed was kind of floating around as all the rest of the guys in that band were.
Yeah.
And so we asked him to step in and play. We did a lot of touring without a drummer for a long time, but I also felt we needed to evolve, and you can't stay in one place. So we asked Ed to join us at a show that we did in the Golden Horseshoe at Disneyland.
Yeah.
First time he sat in with us, and then he was in the band from there on out. So he was a drummer on Shotgun Angel. But that first record was just the four of us.
Yeah. Well, then you guys went on to record, if my notes are correct, several. Was it 18 albums that you guys recorded under Daniel Amos, or is it?
I think it's probably been about 18. That sounds.
That's amazing. I had no idea that there was that many. Because, well, let's explore this, because I remember when you did Shotgun Angel, and that was also on Maranatha, correct?
Yes, it was.
The next album was Horrendous Disc, and that was with Larry Norman's label, wasn't it?
Well, it wound up with Larry's.
Okay.
What happened there was that it was going to be our third release for Maranatha Music. But Maranatha Music had shifted at that point in time.
Yeah.
Culture was changing a little bit. We were kind of the second wave after Love Song, The Way, and all those guys. We were kind of the new kids in town. And then behind us were the next new kids in town. They were coming up, and they were bringing with them sensibilities of that particular time.
Yeah.
So, and it was hard for some of the old timers to kind of adjust to that or accept that as the realities of the culture. And so what Maranatha Music began to do was work less and less with bands and shift into more of the praise and worship.
Yeah.
And it was difficult. It was difficult working with bands, because what happens is these guys, certain guys that that were in these bands would go on to be pastors or youth ministers.
Yeah.
Or else they would go get regular jobs. And one of the guys that I really admired, that was in one of the bands that I really admired, I remember revelatory for me was that after he left the band, he wound up working in the Maranatha warehouse.
Oh, really?
Carrying boxes of records around and filling orders. And I thought,
are we talking about Bugsy? Is that
no?
Oh, okay.
The name will go unmentioned, but
okay.
But I contemplated, I felt a deep calling that God wanted me to be an artist, a musician. That was my calling. And I thought, if I sort of go this linear path that most people are going, I'm going to wind up doing something that I'm not called to do. This is what I want to do. And so when Maranatha began to kind of get away from trying to support individual bands of people that were growing up and had families and had rent to pay and things like that, and they were still struggling, and then there was some sense of, why isn't Maranatha Music doing more for us, and all sorts of things like that, all sorts of problems for those guys. So I understood it. I understood why they were moving away from it. So in the middle of Horrendous Disc, the powers that be at Maranatha Music said, yeah, we're doing this thing. We love you guys. We support the record. We will help you find a new deal, something else. We'll hook with a bunch of different people, and we'll go from there. So the first people who were hooked up was Curb Records, which was Mike Curb, who was the son-in-law of Pat Boone.
Yeah.
And we knew Pat, and we had a meeting with Pat, and then met with Mike. He said he loved our stuff and he wanted to sign us to a contract. That would have been what is so-called secular contract. And we were very excited about it. At the same time, Larry Norman's Solid Rock Records and had a booking agency, booking arm. Yeah. And they told us, we'd like to book you, street level. And they said, we'd like to book you. And we said, that sounds like a plan. And we had a meeting, and they said, oh, we misspoke. Larry doesn't really want to book anybody that's not on the Solid Rock label.
Oh.
That's when we met with Larry. Larry said, hey, I know the lawyer you're dealing with at Curb Records. Let me handle it. I know how he thinks, so forth and so on. He goes, negotiates, comes back to us and says, you don't want the deal because it's just a basic contract and they own everything. And but we'd like to have you on Solid Rock. And that's how we wound up there.
So then you came full board. You went. They were your booking agent, and you were on their record label as well.
They were all their artists. That's
Now, how was that transition for you guys from Shotgun Angel to Horrendous Disc? It seems I recall kind of a little, I don't know if you'd call it controversy, or some fans were bewildered, I think, or is that a accurate statement?
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good. That's a pretty good. Bewildered.
Yeah.
Bewitched. Bewildered.
Yeah. Because you guys had changed. Well, what was it? Was it just the style that you've kind of emerged from and went more toward a? I don't even know what you'd call that at the time, but it was a departure, wasn't it? From.
Yeah, I think I definitely think it was, and I've said this before, but it bears repeating. Part of my past that I loved more than anything was at Christmas time, the Beatles would release their new record.
Yeah, and
that was under the tree. That was all I was thinking about. It didn't matter what else I got. Open that thing, and then when everybody was exhausted and opened all their presents up, I spent the whole day in my room in the back, playing whatever that record was over and over and over again.
Yeah,
always challenged me. They were taking someplace I had not been before. I was surprised. I was confused by it a little bit. Didn't know if I like some things, which I usually find if I'm not sure about something, it's probably going to eventually really bring me over big time.
Yeah.
So that sort of got built into my creative system. And part of what I thought was here's a risk here.
Mm-hmm.
So just as there are some former Beatle fans who love them up through Meet the Beatles.
Yeah.
They went to Sgt. Pepper.
Lost them there.
Wow, it's over. I don't want to, hear that stuff.
Yeah.
I was a fan of the surprise. I was a fan of the intrigue.
Yeah.
That's why Shotgun Angel is what it is, because we open ourselves up from being this little acoustic folkish band.
Yeah.
And the very next record created Shotgun Angel.
Yeah.
So I thought it's going to be fun taking people on a musical journey. But it's a spiritual journey as well. It's going to challenge people. But what it's also going to do, this is my philosophy up to this present, is that let's leave some spaces here for people not only to be intrigued by what they're hearing, for something to be God breathed in the whole process, so that there's a connection between the listener and yourself. Somebody's sort of they're not just sitting back and just letting it, sort of passively pass over them.
Yeah.
They're actually being absorbed into it. Maybe they don't even like it first. I've had many people say, I used to not like this album, but over the years, wow, it means so much to me. Changed my life.
I think that's accurate.
Yeah. And so part of it is the ability to not think that you have to deliver the entire gospel and all its ramifications in every song that you do.
Yeah.
But that in a sense, your body of work is speaking of something deep and rich, and that is very much orthodox in what it's trying in its convey. And you bring that listener in, and that's the kind of music that can be life changing. I just today, this very day, I got an email from the guy who mentioned the song, and he said, "This song saved my life."
Wow.
I won't go into details about it, but that's the kind of stuff that gives me chills.
Yes.
And that's fruit. That's what we were talking about. That's how we judge anything, by its fruit.
Yeah.
And I understand how people are married to the nostalgia of something, a time and place that meant something significant, deep, great.
Yeah.
And music becomes attached to that moment. So you fall in love with that music. And you want that experience, maybe you want it to be repeated for as long as the artist that created that experience in the first place is doing what he does.
Would you say it's an accurate statement to say that the Christian audience was a bit fickle?
Well, I think, to be fair to them, they fell in love with something that was lovable, and that easy, breezy, entertaining, fun, sort of preaching to the choir kind of thing. Not to say there were people that came to Christ through it, but it was really oriented towards the church itself, and it was entertaining, and every once in a while it was profound. But I wanted to go to a deeper place. I wanted to speak. I didn't want to speak just to the choir. I wanted to speak even in a small capacity to the world at large, if I could. And and it was not a matter of compromising anything. But what happens for some people, they can be judgmental about that, because it's not just a matter of you've moved out of their area of what appeals to them taste wise.
Yeah.
They attach something more spiritually significant to it. which is, oh, you've lost your first love. That's why I'm connecting with this.
Yeah.
You're kind of ashamed of the gospel.
Yeah.
Or something along those lines. And I grew more and more committed to the gospel as my life went on. So I just think it just got deeper and especially now at my age, being able to share from this side of the hill, all that I've learned, and hopefully I've garnered some wisdom along the way. And the present songs I'm writing, to me, are my heart and are very expressive of a very deep and ongoing commitment to Christ.
Well, that's incredible. And I think, your analogy to the Beatles, in the sense that they morphed or evolved, if you listen to the first album, Meet the Beatles, and the songs and the music that were on that album to their last album, when they got into psychedelics and all the different experimenting they did with George Martin, it was an absolutely different band in terms of the music output, but it was still the same people. And you always heard those influences in those albums. And so I think it's the same thing with what you're saying there with Daniel Amos and the subsequent albums that came out after the departure from Maranatha Music. But when you look back sometimes in the work as a whole, the entire portfolio, if you will, I'm not sure what you would call it, but you can appreciate what it was, and it's still that same Terry Taylor influence in it. I see kind of there's an element of Neil Young as well there, because I think it's like he would do a project and he would move on to something else and do something else and didn't kind of go back to that. We're fast approaching. Go ahead.
Yeah. And we obviously lost a lot of fans, but we gained, gained a lot of fans at the same time. Of course, as a group grows older and there are others that come in, other interests come in, popularity goes down and the whole thing. So that's okay. But what's incredible about it is the loyalty, kindness, and graciousness of the fans, that supporters that continue to be supportive today. Yeah, it's truly amazing, the connection that we all have, and I've continued to make music. I'm still very, very active making music now and putting out records and doing the whole thing. So,
well, I want to talk about that, and I'll let them know the folks. Gosh, we didn't get a chance to go to any of these. You know what I'm going to do, if it's okay with you, Terry? Can you go a little over the hour tonight? Are you good?
No problem.
Okay, we've got a lot of fans hanging on, and I'm sure they're anxious to hear some more of this. And I want to get to some questions, but I do want to get to some things, because you've got a new solo project coming out. I want you to talk about that, and then I want you to talk about Patreon and what that is and what you're doing there.
Okay. I'm currently working on a new solo record. We started it a year ago, if you can believe that.
Wow.
I'm not used to starting a record and having it, take as long as it has. But the reason for it is I put together the band to record the record, brought him up to the Pacific Northwest, and we went into Portland, started laying down all the tracks, and then COVID hit.
Yeah, stops everything.
And it was a new game. The usual thing where you can get together in a studio all together and say mix a song or something.
Yeah.
Now it all has to be done by text and notes and little nuances that you want to be made. You have to write it out and send it. Yeah. They have to respond, and then they have to do it, and then you have to listen to the mix. So it's just the process. And we had already dedicated ourselves to doing 22 songs on the record.
Wow.
I had written so much material for Patreon, which we're going to talk about. I do demos on Patreon, and I had written so many songs that I began to whittle these songs down. And even at 22, I went, I don't know what, how much further I can go. I think there's a full vision here if we go with these 22 songs. So we had committed to that. So we're still, we're, after all the setbacks, a couple of the people involved actually got the virus, all kinds of things going on. We're now light at the end of the tunnel. We got a couple more mixes. We're piecing together all the graphics and things like that. So it's a culmination of you're going to hear a lot of stuff that the kinds of stuff you've heard on some of my past records. But I think this is just finally the maturity that's come along, the working on the craft for all these years. I've got Rob Watson, who was my co-producer on Knowledge and Innocence, my very first solo record, and did such a wonderful job. I brought him back in, so we've kind of gone full circle.
Yeah. And
I'm really proud of it. It's beautiful. It's got actually live strings and horns and
wow.
The wonderful musicians participating on it, and I can't wait for everybody to hear it. It's going to be fantastic.
Yeah, well, looking forward to that.
So part of it is I'm involved with Patreon, which is an artist collective, and it's membership supported. And so if you go on Patreon, Patreon, go on Patreon and go to the Terry Scott Taylor page, I'll come up and tell you all about it. And some of the things that we put up there are, I take some of the old songs, even from the very early Daniel Amos days, and I do reinterpretations of those. I do brand new demos, full demos, everything, with guitars, drums, the whole thing. Matter of fact, the Patreon people were the first people to hear my early demos of my new record. And
really?
There are just other songs I just do for Patreon. So those are there. There's also a podcast there. Do some book reviews, and I'm able to make personal contact with the various members. So if you go there and check it out, you can join pretty cheaply. If you want to go up further in the tiers, you can check those out and see what that entails. But that's basically been my livelihood now.
Wow.
In my semi-retirement years.
Your semi-retirement years. Well, do you mind taking a few questions?
Not at all.
Okay. Marisa, could you bring up a few questions for us, if you would? This is from Clint Arndt. Let's see, there are about a half dozen Daniel Amos albums that are still CD only. Is there any interest in doing some kind of Kickstarter to make vinyl versions? I love Songs of the Heart, but I love vinyl more.
Oh man, after my own heart. Vinyl,
yes.
Yeah, my son is a big vinyl fan, so
yeah,
he got me turned back to vinyl, and that's about all I'm purchasing now.
Yeah.
And we just to answer that question, we've done a number of vinyl releases.
Have you?
Yeah. And we're planning. We did a huge vinyl release of Horrendous Disc. It's still available, by the way. If you go to the Daniel Amos website, or you can find it at Terry Scott Taylor, you'll see some of the things that we offer. But it's difficult. You people like different records that they would like to have on vinyl. Yeah. And it's a process. You got to do a Kickstarter and the whole thing. So
yeah, it's a costly project to put onto vinyl, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. And so, but the fans have always been very supportive. We've never failed to be able to do it.
Yeah.
But, it just is. It's a long process, and we're trying to get to all of them. I mean, eventually, hopefully, we will.
Yeah. I'm going to bring one up here from my buddy, DJ Randy Johnson. Are you doing any live concerts? Well, I know during COVID you're not, but what's the status when things open up again? Are you doing anything with Daniel Amos or the Lost Dogs or, some of these other iterations that you've put together over the years?
Well, we in Daniel Amos, we lost Tim Chandler, our bass player, fairly recently. Tim was
Let's see. Terry froze up again here for a second. We lost you for about probably 10 or 15 seconds. You froze.
Yeah. Well, so Tim Chandler, our bass player, passed away recently.
Yes.
And really the heart of the band. Of course, it's a matter of logistics to get everybody together. It's difficult to do. We did it last time was in for an album called Dig Here Said the Angel.
Yeah.
Which met a lot of critical praise. I'm really proud of that record. And so as far as getting together again, it would probably more likely be some kind of recording project. I have all the guys involved to some extent on the new solo record. As touring goes, the most likely touring, I'm kind of past my touring days. I'm just a little worn out, but I'm not saying I wouldn't do something.
Yeah,
and it would probably likely be the Lost Dogs. Now, the Lost Dogs, if your audience, I'm sure some are acquainted with the band, some aren't. But if you like the early Daniel Amos, right, the acoustic sort of
that's kind of the Lost Dogs feel, huh?
On a harmony and Americana, folk, country kind of thing, gospel kind of thing. That's it. So that's the place to go for that stuff. Yeah.
Well, that's great. That's good to know, because I'd love to have you guys at the Upper Room when we're back to meeting again.
Great.
Yeah. Any more questions we have? I know there's quite a few comments here. Let's see. This is from Jeremy Babb. What led to the decision to create all the different bands you were part of?
Well, it's kind of like, having fun. Why not?
Yeah.
Part of it was like I like taking on different identities. I like shifting gears, exploring maybe genres that I hadn't worked within before, or with the first thing that I believe the first thing that I did that was a departure from the solo record with Daniel Amos was the Swirling Eddies, and that was just an opportunity to kind of just have some fun.
Yeah.
And it was a delightful project to get involved with, and we didn't take ourselves too seriously, and we recorded songs that were sort of radio friendly on some level, and that sort of thing, and then that became ongoing. Kind of like Lost Dogs. We first went to Lost Dogs. We were going to do a one-off. We were just going to. There's all these guys from different indie bands and within the Christian marketplace. We're going to form sort of a little super group thing and do one record, a kind of a gospel country record. And we had such a great time doing it that we wound up doing several records and have plans this year to do another one.
Yeah, excellent. I'm going to bring up one more question here from Michael Cariaga. What is your favorite song of Daniel Amos, and what was your favorite song to perform in concert? Thanks for sharing how you got saved. That is always the most interesting part of the Upper Room interviews. Well, thank you, Michael. But there's your question there. What was your favorite Daniel Amos tune that you guys did?
Oh my gosh, that's like asking me who's my favorite child.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to go there.
Yeah.
And that can, like children, maybe on certain days one of them is a little closer to you than another one is.
Yeah.
So that's interchangeable. I couldn't begin with one song.
Yeah.
Sometimes, sometimes I'll forget about a song and hear it someplace. I'll go, wow, I forgot about that one. Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
It'll be fresh and it'll be great that day. Or I've even had the Lord give me back my own songs in terms of something I'm going through. I'll suddenly hear a lyric and I might even think at the beginning, where have I heard that before? Oh, yeah. Wait a minute, I wrote that song. That kind of thing. So that's really difficult to say. And same with in concert stuff. You just certain nights that there might be one song that you do that just sort of emerges.
Yeah.
And seems to really you just have a sense that it's really resonating with the crowd. That'll be your favorite one that night.
Right. Well, Terry, it's been more than an interesting hour, and boy, I love talking with you about all this, and so much we weren't able to get to. But when can we expect? Well, I think you already talked about the new stuff, but where will they be able to find the new solo album once it's out?
Well, we'll get all the information out to Facebook and all the platforms that where you can order it to, and that sort of thing. So we'll keep everybody posted on that. I'd like, if I could, just to give one quick plug to a friend of mine.
Absolutely.
Jerry Wilson has a little podcast. He does the Cyphus Hour, cyphushour.com. And
Cyrus, Cyrus?
I should say Cephas.
Cephas.
Yeah, Phus. And he does a lot of the stuff, this sort of era of music that you guys do.
Oh, yeah.
And, he's a real good friend, so I want to give a shout out to him.
Sure.
But yeah, we're not making an announcement about the new record at this point, just because there's just, you never know when things are going to go off the rails a little bit or whatever.
Yeah. I know.
But we're very close to completing it, and as soon as we do, we'll get the info out to everyone.
Excellent. Terry, thanks so much for being with us tonight. It's been a great hour. Loved just hearing all these backstories that you've just never heard before, and I think a lot of the folks probably have not heard these things. And getting a chance to know a little bit of the man behind the music, because I think you were such a figure in Christian music, particularly early Christian music, and then over the years you've continued to do it, and you're still doing it, and still maintaining the faith. But folks, I just want to also tell you, and I know 99% of the people that are watching this are probably believers, but if you're watching tonight and you don't have a faith in Christ, Jesus said, "Behold, I stand at the door and I knock. Any man who opens the door, I will come in and sup with him, and he with me." And the meal in biblical times is one of the most intimate things you can do together. Jesus wants that part of our heart, just like he captured Terry's heart so long ago, captured my heart, and a simple prayer of confession, confessing that we're sinners and inviting Christ into your heart. That's the beginning. And so if you do that tonight, if you're so moved to do that, let us know at the Upper Room by emailing us at prayer@theupperroompresents.com, because we would love to send you a little Bible and maybe some literature that kind of helps you dig your feet into your newfound faith. And we also, if you have any prayer requests, we have a team of people here that pray. So feel free, and you can do that anonymously, or you can put your name on it, whatever you prefer. But we do pray for you, and that's just part of our ministry. So I'm kind of rushing through those things because we've gone long tonight. But again, Terry, thank you so much for being with us. We'll have to bring you back again and just get into some of the other things that you've done over the years. And it's been a real joy.
Same here, Ron. Really appreciate it.
Great. Thanks so much. And folks, thanks for watching. Don't forget, next week, we've got John Elefante from the group Kansas. And have a good week. God bless you.